right. So the way this show works, we talk a little bit off the top. We get a little, introspective, and then we kind of try and come up with a tier list or an essential list where it's like, if you had a friend that was like, "Hey, man, I'm trying to get into this Death Doom stuff," and you kind of wanted to give them an absolute standout, the kind of record you think the whole genre wouldn't exist without, and then you've got, kind of 5 classic albums and 5 of like the newer generation, and there will be some discussion of some albums that, are kind of proto, so to speak, the kind of albums that sort of laid the ground for it to exist. So just to start off, Alex, we'll get to you first. I've been chatting a little bit with Mike. If you had to pick one kind of a singular Death Doom album that you think really is a foundation for the genre, a thing that a lot of branched out from, maybe big influence to you, what's the kind of album you would go with if you just had to pick one singular shining beacon of an album?
Okay. I would go. I'll tell you. Oh, God, you gotta. I'm just gonna say, Brave Murder Day.
Brave Murder Day.
Yeah, and to me, it's like, are they even Death Doom? It kind of goes back to I don't know, but if we're counting Catatonia, Brave Murder Day, to me, that would be the one that would be highly influential. And okay, you've got it on there, so you must have agreed with me on that.
Yes, I pre-agreed with you for sure.
Okay,
we were in pre-agreement. Hey,
yeah, I was gonna pick for myself. I was gonna say Dance of December Souls, but Brave Murder Day. I mean, if we're talking personal influence, probably Dance of December Souls. But I mean, if we're talking like, if I'm talking to just some random person and I'm trying to introduce them to death metal, I think Brave Murder Day kind of incorporates the heaviness of like Dance of December Souls and a lot of that, like the early stuff. I know people talking about Peaceful 3 and all that, that earlier heavier stuff, like like when they all started their careers kind of. And then it also embodies a lot of like the more like gothic melodic stuff that kind of came and developed later with it. There's ties and stuff. It's the perfect, I mean, for Catatonia, it's the perfect bridge between the earlier material, the more like what is standard Death Doom, and the more like depressive rock turn that they kind of took with their later stuff. So I think that's a pretty fair album.
Mike, can I riff on that for a second? What you said about like the perfect bridge. I was debating between Paradise Lost, Shades of God, and Catatonia, Brave Murder Day. And so I feel like Shades of God is that Paradise Lost version of Brave Murder Day to me, where you might prefer, Gothic, or Lost Paradise, and say that's more like Gothic would be the record, the sort of groundbreaking record. But I think that Shades of God is the one that is the bridge between Icon, and like what they did before, and is a good, genuine blend of death and doom. So do what you want with that, but to me, those are like 2 similar records. Coming from the same place.
Yeah, I mean, you do get an interesting thing with the kind of the Peaceful 3, the sort of 3 that you get as the kind of founders, where it's like they made something for us. They sort of like, we're like, hey, we made this, and everybody was like, oh, cool, and they're like, and then they kind of just left. They were like, you can play with it, and they all went off and did their own thing in a very different way. I mean, Paradise Lost being the one that kind of came back to it and sort of stayed closest within it. But Catatonia being, probably I would say probably the most identifiable, the biggest, and one of the few bands where I love Death Doom, but I'm not sad that they're not making Death Doom, because I actually do find a lot of what they make post that is really great and really unique. And you're like, hey, if that's you going off over there, that's kind of what I'm cool with.
No, I can agree with that. I mean, I support any band kind of on their artistic vision, whether I'm along for the ride or not. I've kind of lost track of a lot of like what Catatonia's been up to lately, but I mean, Discouraged One still sits as like one of my favorite albums. You know, Tonight's Decision's a great one. You know, I mean, everything, Last Fair Deal, all that stuff is really good. The stuff, you know, that I saw in there, Great Cold Distance and things like that, I'm still very much in support of. Don really loves a lot of the later Catatonia, and I know he and I kind of hanging out and doing whatever. He's played me a lot of the stuff, and I mean, it's still very top. I mean, it's very good.
Yeah, right. It's just, I mean, and such a great voice. Just really
absolutely.
Can kind of do anything, and it's just, yeah, just really just sounds nice. It's weird to have someone that has that kind of, that like perfect voice for just music. You're like, oh my god, thank god you did music, because what a fucking waste it would have been if you did absolutely anything else with your life. Like cured a rare form of cancer, get out of here. Give us that voice. Catatonia is now an awful prog band. I disagree with the awful part. I think they you know, have had a long-standing career, and there's some albums that I think are hits and some albums that I think are misses. But awful prog band seems a little aggressive. Human Falafel.
I say I don't like them after Viva Emptiness.
Yeah, would you consider that prog? I mean,
they don't seem proggy to me. They just, to me, they're like radio metal.
I like a lot of prog. I wouldn't Catatonia is a fun.
Yeah, like after Viva Emptiness, I love Viva Emptiness, but like after that, I felt like they lost the iciness and like the classic riffing that I particularly loved about them earlier, and they moved on to more like chord based stuff and less of like the sort of noodly stuff that you think about with the early style. And to me, they're boring, but whatever. You know, I mean,
hey, that's what you're here for. That's what you're here to say.
But you still got Brave Murder Day, though.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the early stuff. I listen to the early stuff. Let Don listen to the late stuff. He likes the late stuff. That's fine, you know.
And put them together, and what do you got? A good mishmash of riff writing. Right. So there you go.
Yeah, we've got passionate Passionate Introvert. Kind of interesting how both Catatonia and Paralost both evolved so much over their career too. Yeah, and I mean, you know, you have I feel like I mean, it's a little fair that you know, there's obviously a couple of others that kind of just don't jump. Anathema doesn't jump up in my mind quite as much, even though, you know, important, because Anathema's the one that didn't click as much with me, especially especially their later stuff also really didn't click with me as much in the world of the beginners. But we have also had a mention of a great early band that I would say probably I wouldn't put as legend, because it was kind of a band that you know, released a record and then was like, oh damn, no one cares about our record, bye. And then like a decade later we were like, whoa, this record was really awesome. And they're like, well, now you tell us. In Winter, being, you know, a band that's almost more important for the development of the genre today than the development of the genre at its start, I would say, because, you know, you don't really have outside of, you know, there you go. Yep.
That was my honorable mention for my top.
Is your honorable mention? Yeah, that would definitely be my pick for legend. Although I think I would put it in essential early, because, like I said, it very much feels like a record that was discovered and appreciated, you know, a decade or two later. In that, you know, you don't hear the sound as much in a lot of early Death Doom, and then the 2000s hit, and then suddenly there's like a lot of wintry bands.
Oh, absolutely.
Popping up.
Yeah, my biggest attraction from Into Darkness in particular is, and I've joked about it before, it's a very polite production. Yeah, I feel like nowadays with a lot of, you know, modern recording technology and things like that, people have really been able to capture like dismal, crushing productions on that. I mean, because it was so early, I think it was hard to kind of capture, I think, the essence of it. Like when I saw Winter the very first time when they played at MDF, it was amazing. I went up, I was right there in front, and I mean, it was just like when that guy had that fucking, oh, am I allowed to drop swears? Sorry.
Yeah, go nuts.
Yeah, he had that weird guitar. And I mean, it was way cool. And it was like, I just remember watching it and going like, God, I wish I got that same vibe when I listened to the album, because the album is great. Like the writing on it is very good. Like the desolation and the mood and all that is there. It's just like, I feel like the production doesn't quite capture it as well as I had hoped.
Yeah. I mean, it's a peculiar record, and it does seem like this discovered artifact. It really fits well in the kind of rediscovery category, because it's like there's a slight barrier to entry for it, not necessarily even in the music, just in the way it was created and how it exists. Thankfully we also got that. I don't have an original pressing, but I've got the great Southern Lord repress that they did. Yeah.
I've got an original cassette, but that's that Southern Lord one.
I actually had a great gift from metal great Mark Riddick, the fantastic, one of our finest artists, sent me. He was just like, hey, I've just had this kicking around for a while, and I know you're a big fan of it. He just sent me the first Winter tape. An original. I was like, nice. What the hell, Mark? This is way too nice of a present. And so
dude, that's awesome. That's the world.
Yeah, that's a little nice one up on the wall. Alex, what are your thoughts on Winter?
I don't listen. I like the record. It's oppressive. I don't listen to it a ton, but I did have more of a thought on Anathema. I have a hot take on Anathema.
Let's get the hot take on Anathema. Love it.
I love Weather Systems. I think that record's amazing, and Don and I actually saw them live on that tour. But I really don't like early Anathema. Their Death Doom era stuff, I think the songwriting sucks, honestly, and I don't like to say that about like talk shit on bands.
Yeah.
But if I think about the song structures and where the songs go, I think it's poor songwriting, honestly. And the early stuff does not do anything for me. But when they dropped the Death Doom stuff and got into more of the melodic stuff, I thought the guitars really started to shine. The melodies really came out. And I think Weather Systems is a
around like what record. Eternity or so, or
like any of that early stuff. It's no good to me.
All right, I will riff off that then. If you all right, my thing with it too, and Death Doom it has like a very weird thing. Like some of my favorite things that have come out of like Death Doom are not actual full-length albums. Like there's so many albums that are like EPs, and Anathema is a good one. Like Crestfallen and Pentecost 3, they did like a CD that's like a 2-on-1. I actually have the Crestfallen 7-inch. I was like trying to think. I was like, I'm not going to spend like 15 minutes digging for it. But dude, that is like one of the heaviest 7 inches I have. I like put that on, and I like had to double check that I was on the right speed. And I mean, like the vocals are so heavy on that.
Okay.
I would suggest going back and giving it a listen. Okay. I actually think it's great. But yeah, like that, Lost Paradise is an EP. For Funerals to Come, the Divine Eve EP, like a lot of that really like cool early stuff is good. What would be another good one? Like Crypto Curvus, was it Cyclone of Insanity? That's an EP. I don't know, that Mythic record, that's an EP. Like there's so many like awesome things that kind of are, I think, are essential Death Doom albums that technically really aren't albums.
So you're making my life difficult, is what you're saying. I have a bunch of covers loaded, but I don't have any.
Oh no, you don't. Yeah, if we're talking albums, I mean, I'm all about limits because we could be here all day. Yeah, but I'm just saying there's so many things that could be in the proto category, in the legend category, and things like that. You know, Thor's Hammer, Dog's Knot, or however that's pronounced. You know, I think that's technically an EP. There's just a lot of awesome things that, aren't full-length albums. But yeah, as far as Anathema, I think their best stuff was probably like Crestfallen, Pentecost, like, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So thumbs up to Winter, and thumbs up to Winter. Thumbs down to Death Doom Anathema for me. thumbs way up for later when they started to get more spacey.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you like the later stuff? Because I like that stuff too. Like, I actually think super underrated, Fine Day to Die, or Fine Day to Exit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's that era. I'm all on that Judgment, all that stuff. Super into it. They really know how to build and get great crescendos. I think their songwriting, I don't know what happened, if they got rid of someone or what the deal was, but their songwriting went through the roof at some point when they stopped doing the Death Doom stuff.
Well, it is something that it's interesting for the kind of start of Death Doom, where it does seem like it was a bunch of bands that didn't know what they were doing. I mean, you have certain things where it does seem like there was like a very intentional, you know, second wave of black metal. There's a very clear thesis stated. We're tired of how much death metal, modern production, corporate, blah, blah, blah. Here's the opposite of that. With Death Doom, it was sort of like, we don't know what we are, and we don't know what we want to make, and we don't know what kind of band we want to be. So we're just going to put out records, and we're going to like turn pieces and put them together and see what fits. There's a lot, it feels a lot more experimental. It feels a lot more confused, but in like a good way, where it's that kind of, that beautiful artistic confusion where you're like, do these things go together? Is there something in here that we have to say in this form? And yeah, it does seem like Anathema, it was like that part, the part that puts them into the genre was what was holding them back. And once they kind of got rid of that, they were like, oh, because I mean, the one thing I will say about early Anathema that it does kind of really fit in the Death Doom thing is that one of the things that I always categorize Death Doom is guitar tone is always like fantastic. I mean, there's people get like kind of a signature guitar tone, and there will be little tweaks on it, but guitar tone is such an important thing to it. And I know it's kind of silly because it's important to everything, but I mean, I can listen to a record just based on guitar tone. If there's just a great guitar tone, I mean, Serenades just has a good enough guitar tone that I'm like, I don't really care what else is going on. That's just it feels perfect. That's why it's my favorite genre, because that feeling of that really nice, perfect Death Doom guitar tone is just my favorite sound.
I can agree with you on that, Blayne. I mean, because yeah, I consider myself, you know, primarily a guitar player, so like I like Death Doom, and a lot of the thing is it's like you get kind of the heaviness of like death metal guitar tones, but you get like the space that comes with having like slower, more openness and things like that. So like you can really kind of hear the snarl of the tubes, especially on like older productions and stuff where things were still primarily analog, and you're still getting like legit sound on tape. We're not talking like digital recreation or anything like that. So I mean, you're really hearing a lot of that in there too. And so I could agree with that fully on that. I think a lot of that earlier stuff, like for example, Asphyx, like on that Last One on Earth, like I love the guitar tone on that album. It is so good, you know, and because it is mid-paced to slower stuff, like you can really hear what's going on, you know, because like when a lot of stuff just gets blisteringly fast, like unless you have like a very tight amp that's going to like respond well to it, you know, you're not going to get that. But I mean, like most classic tone and things like that kind of come from like vintage amp stuff that you think like rock tone and stuff like that. A lot of it kind of muds out and whatnot if you try and do fast with it. So it's like you kind of get that edge of, you get sort of that vintage heaviness and early death metal vibe to it, you know, but you also get the space that you need to kind of really hear what's going on in it.
Asphyx is a fun one to talk about beside Winter, because I feel like they had I mean, obviously they're, you know, more successful. They didn't break up after one album or anything, but they kind of, it does feel like they kind of experienced the same thing as Winter, where they made modern Death Doom, and they now are getting kind of the respect and the adulation that they deserved. But there was like a decade there where they seemed to be like an undervalued band. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We got a lot of the chat very excited that that your cat's there. Apparently,
I was going to say everybody's got cats. I can see Alex was betting his. Why, you
know. I got to say on Asphyx, Death Hammer's my favorite record by a mile. I like their discography from beginning to end, but Death Hammer, there's no competition for me. That's my favorite record. I like it more than the Rack. It's definitely my favorite one.
The Rack has some of the weirdest drumming I think I've ever heard on any extreme metal album, which is why I'm with you, Blayne. I saw you pop it up in Essential early. This was also my top 5. Yeah, I'm in with that.
Sorry, what did you say your favorite was?
Death Hammer.
Death Hammer. Death Hammer. Really? That's
It's
well,
more.
yeah. That's I mean, yeah, it's surprising, but cool. I mean, yeah, like I said, they are a band that really had a very much a second or even a first kind of wave of the excitement in the 2000s, and they've really been kind of we're kind of waiting to be that like the reason you click buy on an out of town festival. They were kind of like always should have been that band, but in the past 10 years it's finally like, oh shit, it's Fix's headlining that. I'm going, man.
Oh yeah, listen to that record when you're working out. I know you lift, so
Yeah.
put that record on, and then it'll be your favorite. Like for me, like Bolt Thrower or Death Hammer, that stuff for working out too. Definitely put that on when you lift.
Eli Anger was this Fix singer from Pestilence, yes, which is Pestilence. I mean, is a good band to talk about briefly in the proto category, where you get that. Pestilence is kind of where a little bit where you get that that kind of early Death Doom sound, but it's kind of funny because it's the early Death Doom sound that would become the late Death Doom sound. It's like it's death metal that's almost slow enough to be Death Doom, but just not quite. It's like 10 BPM too fast still.
Yeah, Pestilence were a good band as far as that, because I kind of thought that they were sort of like the bridge, like they're one of those essential like death thrash kind of bands that kind of bridge that, to what death metal would become too. But yeah, I definitely love Van Drunen's vocals, both in that and doing the Asphyx stuff. And I know a big thing around that, because when they got their second win, that was right around the time I think that Hail of Bullets album came out too, and that was I like that album
so good. I love that shit. Hail of Bullets is awesome.
Well, we gotta. I love how quickly we just want to talk about. We're just talking about everything, all kinds.
Oh yeah,
just getting excited.
You signed up for this, sir.
No, this happens every time. There's always just like a weird, like, all right, let's just start talking about stuff we're into. Forget the stream. 80 Lug, what are you talking about? One of the early bands we haven't touched on yet. Yes, November's Doom, amid its hallowed mirth, 1995, a little later after the first wave, but yeah, you kind of had this similar with Cyanide, where this was mostly a European phenomenon, except a little bit in Chicago.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're like one of the early ones. Yeah, in Chicago too. I was gonna say with Cyanide, Descent into Hell, that's an essential one too. I would say as far as like Death Doom.
Yeah.
But November's Doom, I played with them in 2014 in Vegas, and they were awesome. I really enjoyed their set. And I mean, it's fast forward. I mean, amount of years since 95. When did its Hollow Mirth come out? 95.
Yeah, 95.
Around there, mid-90s, whatever. I mean, it's like they still killed. I really enjoyed the set. It was my first time seeing them. So
Aussie Rules, my boys, Cyanide better get on this list or I riot. Well, I mean, I guess we're checking into the Chicago section of the show. November Doom and Cyanide. It's funny that it seems like such a small genre, but then you get so many kind of great, just really great bands that sound super different. I mean, when you think about like two bands from the same city in November's Doom and Cyanide, it just have two very different bands, both coming out very early. Cyanide obviously being more of the kind of Asphyx camp, with some definitely in the more slowed down death metal that they accidentally slowed it down enough to become Doom kind of territory.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, one of my favorite albums, and just one of my favorite album covers of the period too.
I love that album cover.
It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. Can we talk about My Dying Bride? Yes, of course. That's another one we're gonna touch on. Gentlemen, thoughts on My Dying Bride?
I love My Dying Bride.
So I got a hot take on those guys too.
Oh, hot take. Let's get the hot take.
I mean, like for the Peaceville 3, I'm here to talk about what I like and be honest and not
exactly.
not
No,
get
that's
cool
what we
points
want
and all that kind of crap.
No, that's why it's called Lock Horns.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of good stuff in My Dying Bride, but I think they, from my perspective, could do with editing. I think when they're in their death metal, riffing, they're freaking awesome. I think the moany gothic-y stuff, there's too much of that in between, and I want to connect more of the death metal parts and have less of the depressive, stuff. And I think it would be more concise, interesting listen for me. I don't really enjoy listening to their albums from front to back. I will say, when they played MDF, I thought they were, whatever year that was, however many years ago when we saw them, Mike, they were one of the highlights of the fest for me. I thought the way that they presented themselves and just their live show, the emotion that they put into it, they were very, very compelling and very moving in a live setting. So that's kind of like, I wouldn't put any of their records on here as records that like I listen to a lot. I think you could definitely put them in the essential early, but would I like tell a friend, dude, you got to listen to this? Honestly, I wouldn't.
I kind of disagree. I mean, I agree with you on that. Like, I mean, Aaron Stainthorpe's, more cleaner vocals and stuff like that. They're just, it's an acquired taste. I'll give it that. But I think the essential, when we were talking about legend stuff, I was going to pick Dance of December Souls, but you got Brave Murder Day. I mean, my pick, Turn Loose the Swans. I'm actually, my favorite stuff are the EP stuff. I like
again with your EPs.
That's what I said. Their best thing. You know what? If I could take that fierce pressing of the Trinity or whatever they call it, where they put all 3 EPs on one thing, like that would be my jam. That is my personal My Dying Bride album right there. I jam that probably 80% more than anything else. But yeah, As the Flower Withers, Turn Loose the Swans, even Angel in the Dark River. Cry of Mankind is awesome. I mean, it's albeit very long, but I mean, you got to kind of take long songs with Death Doom. I mean, we got a couple 8-minute guys.
Guilty as charged.
I will say, yeah, one of the there definitely can be a bit of a challenge with My Dying Bride, because again, we're talking about those bands that feels like they were figuring something out, because you do get like, you're listening to spoken word violin and then it's like straight into death metal. It's not even like it then starts layering over some death metal. You get like a snap of a ramp where it's like, what do we want to do right now? Let's talk for a minute. And then boom. Holy fuck. But yeah, I mean, you know, definitely an essential. We had some demands from the chat about it. Passionate Introvert, EPs or albums too, and Blayne, am I being discriminatory? There's just you can't open the floodgates. We'd never get this show done in 2 hours. Are you kidding me? We started talking about EPs and demos and everything, and we'll be here rummaging through crates until 2 a.m.
Yeah, EPs by definition are not LPs, so
they are.
There it is.
Extended plays, not long plays. which doesn't particularly make sense in either way. EP bigot, how dare you? How dare you?
That's what I said. We'd be here for a long time if I could put EPs. I could go, there's so many on there that are just like great essential Death Doom stuff that, bands that just never really got around to doing a full length or things like that. I mean, or by the time they got to the full length, it was a different sound. And that's another thing with Death Doom is a lot of bands, Catatonia, even the Peaceville 3, all these bands have all like kind of made tweaks to their sounds. I thought Alex actually had a fantastic way to describe it. You've got an X-axis of doom and a Y-axis of death, but you also have a Z-axis of what's like an unknown. Not to steal your thing. That was full credit for that. I actually
you attributed it, so it's okay.
Genius way to describe it, sir. So yeah, and that's what it is it's like, as they go through, I mean, any band that wants to stick around for a long time has to, like, you have to carve some kind of an identity, or at least strive to have some sort of like prolific, edge to your music on it. you would love to be able to kind of go and do the same thing over and over and over, but like how many bands get to be bolt thrower, you know? How many bands get to be able to do that, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting because a bolt thrower is one that kind of comes up when talking about Death Doom, and could, you know, easily be considered a proto band, or you know, what people draw a lot from, in that, you know, it's definitely death metal. It's definitely not Death Doom, but there is something about that sound that it would surprise me if you were a fan of Death Doom and you were like, yeah, a bolt thrower doesn't really do it for me. It feels like a lot of bands heard bolt thrower and were like, damn, that's really cool, but I like to play Doom music, so what if we put a little bit of that in there? What if I just do some, what if it's just bolt thrower but there's spoken word violin on it too?
Yeah. I definitely think that you hit a good thing. Is it's like in the early days of Death Doom, it was, you know, there's a lot of experimenting. I think that goes with just any formation of a genre. You know, you kind of start finding bands that have some sort of similar things and you group them. And then that comes with secondary waves of bands and stuff. But yeah, like Death Doom, for some reason, it really latched on with the Gothic stuff. It really, I mean, because there's some people out there that think Autopsy is technically a Death Doom band.
Yeah.
And I would say Autopsy is more a death metal band, but they have the, proto. That would be a great, there you go. I think that would be a great category for that. But
honestly, I feel like Asphyx is in that realm most of the time when we're talking about the percentage, you know, of death versus doom and whatever. To me, Asphyx is so deathy that the doom, it's like they must just skirt by with enough doom to be called Death Doom. But you could probably make a strong argument that they're also really more proto Death Doom.
Yeah, too. I mean, that's potentially fair if we want to free up some space, because we do.
No, you don't need to move anything around. But like, to me, they're on that like when you think of a band like Hood Menace, there's no question they're Death Doom.
Yeah.
To me, you know, when people talk about Autopsy and Asphyx, to me, they're both strongly on the death side, with maybe just enough doom to be called Death Doom.
Yeah. There, what I think it's fair to say that you could potentially be talking to a guy in an Asphyx shirt at a festival, and you could say Death Doom, and he could say, "What's that?"
Yeah, I mean,
there's a high possibility of that happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you're not really familiar with what Death Doom is, or at least like that, I mean, Asphyx could just essentially be like a mid-paced death metal band.
Yeah. So that's that potentially, because we do have to pick 5 for the early period, and there's a couple of bands we haven't talked about yet that are fair. One of them that's very large. One of them that it was never very large, but feels like they have a large impact, and it's been brought up by a couple of people in the chat. I mean, this was getting suggestions before even the stream started, which is Disembowelment is another one where again, kind of similar to Winter in the, put out an album, wasn't necessarily appropriately appreciated in their time, and then now we get a lot of really underground still, but affection for the band.
Oh yeah, no, there's so much stuff I feel like now that's just kind of like really taken from like Disembowelment Worship. Like I said, I grabbed it for my top 5. So yeah, I'm into it. I love that album. I actually really like that Inverloch stuff too. Like I have that EP. I think they put something out since then. I actually don't have it or haven't heard from it yet, but no, I really like that EP that they put out too. That was like the remainder of those guys. But yeah, no, I think this is a fantastic album. This is like a good example of Death Doom. I think by default, I think they were just trying to do something different. Like there's the slow passages. There's like weird, almost like psychedelic vibes that are going on to this. I get a lot of vibes with this, with that band Spectral Voice. Like I could tell they're very, at least on that last one, from what I heard, I could tell they have a lot of influence that they're pulling from this album in particular. It's like, it's weird. There's like kind of slow riffs with like blast. I'm not talking about Spectral Voice, but I'm going back to Disembowelment. But I mean, there's like almost like blasting stuff with like strange instrumentation going on. That's why I said it's almost got kind of like a psychedelic edge, not like 60s psychedelia, but just more like it's very tripped out. you know, in the same way that like Morbid Angel is kind of psychedelic at times.
Yeah. Hey, JD.
They're working that Z-axis, you know,
Z-axis. Yeah, that's a Z-axis album for sure.
Oh, they're all Z'd out on that one.
JD, thanks for giving that stuff to Self-Disgust. And hey, we talked about Asphyx a little bit, whether they're death metal or death doom. So hey, why don't we let the chat decide? I'll toss a poll. It'll be up for 3 minutes. You can tell us. It'll definitely be on the chart regardless. It'll be either just be in proto or essential early. What do you think? Is Asphyx more death metal or is it death doom? Let us know. Yeah, right. Disembowelment's one of those ones where it's funny because similar to Winter, it seems like where everybody was experimenting, and whereas most of the bands were experimenting in creating a certain thing, the Winter and Disembowelment were accidentally experimenting to create today's death doom. Like they were accidentally experimenting to create like Hooded Menace and Spectral Voice and you see that lapse in appreciation, and it makes sense. But again, yeah, that experimentation, that Z-axis, definitely compared to Winter, it's the more experimenty, it's the more kind of primitive and rough sounding, but in again that way where those aren't insults, those are like appreciative terms, kind of.
No, I fully agree. I think you're describing it actually very well.
Alex, thoughts on Disembowelment? Hot takes on Disembowelment?
No, I don't have any.
Better.
No, I mean, kind of thumbs up for me. I again, kind of like Winter, don't listen to them all the time, but I have no dissenting views, you know. So
no dissenting views.
I love albums that are weird. Yeah. I like my favorite albums, especially in extreme metal, are the ones that are strange. You know, like I like Carbonized Screaming Machines. I like Old Lady Drivers. I like Disembowelment Transcendence into the Peripheral. I like all that stuff. Like if it's strange and it's unique and it makes me think, or kind of spawns ideas in my mind, that there are albums that end up getting repeated listens out of me. And this is one of them. Like I absolutely love this album, and I fully stand on it. I would it up in the legend category if I could, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, certainly feels legendary for the like I said, for the stuff that's going on today. It really feels like the bedrock of a lot of what's happening now in the genre. And as time goes on, it just becomes more relevant. We do have a decision from the chat. They think Asphyx is 21-5 for death metal, so we'll toss it up in the proto category. It's death metal, so it's not quite death doom, but it undeniably has an influence on the genre. And yeah, I mean, there is a very large band, another one of the biggest that we haven't talked about yet, that has some polarized feelings on it, certainly, especially because, you know, the type of people that maybe are a fan of the band today aren't a fan of the genre we're talking about, and vice versa, is Amorphous, being a very large entity that sort of, again, you know, similar to a lot of the bands we're talking about, started in death doom almost seemingly as an accident, and then went probably the farthest away from the genre about any band we might talk about today, even going so far as to be like, hey, get that death doomy looking logo out of here, we got to get some papyrus going on in our lives. And hey, yeah, Suarez Drums, thanks for the raid, thanks for coming in, hope your stream was great.
Don't be talking crap about Tulanella. Yeah, no, that's kind of a weird one for me because personally, I've never really kind of looked at Amorphous as being a death doom band. I love Amorphous because they're another band. Like I kind of see down in there a very pixelated Tales in a Thousand Lakes, it looks like. Yeah. But yeah, like that album to me it's a death metal album, but it's got strange keyboards and the weird like clean vocals and stuff like that. Like they were talking about cleans on the new Temple of Void, and I'm like, you just wait till the Amorphous vocals start going in off that.
Yeah, you know,
Winter Day vocals in there.
Yeah, there's some silly voices on that this on the Amorphous record that is in there. Yeah, Tales from a Thousand.
I love it.
There's definitely there's a silly voice. There's like there's parts where it has like an Egyptian sound. it's definitely a record where you go like, yeah, you guys weren't trying to make a Death Doom record here. You accidentally maybe made one. But you know, worth talking about because it is a very large one. Let's see how the chat feels about Amorphous. Yeah. We can get another poll going. On Amorphous.
Yeah, because I've always looked at like Privilege of Evil or like Corellian Isthmus, and that's what I mean. That's like essentially just death metal, in my opinion. But
yeah, I'm with you on that. Like, if someone said they were Death Doom, I could see the argument being made. But for whatever reason, I just think of them as death metal, and I love that early stuff. I don't care as much for any of the new stuff that I've heard, but all their deathy stuff, totally all over it.
I mean, I think for me, the Death Doom comes in with the silly voices on that album. That's where you start to get like, if you show up with this silly voice at a death metal at the death metal meetup, you're gonna get stuffed in a locker, kid.
See, I wish that when they did switch over to do the predominantly clean vocals, that they just kept doing those clean vocals on, you know. But I've had tons of people, and it's like Catatonia with me. There's just so much music coming out, and I've been so swamped with like other stuff in just my personal life that I don't nearly check out the amount of music that I wish I did, or at least that I did when I was like a budding metal fan, or like even just like in my early 20s and stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff I've had people like just shout praises for, especially the Amorphous stuff that like kind of came out like post millennial, like going into like the 2010s and beyond and whatnot. And it's on my to-do list, but so I can't really like rate or gauge it so much. But like the early stuff I've always really liked, and you know, the stuff that I do have from like that transitional period, like I said, I want my Black Winter Day vocals.
Yeah, I've listened to a bit of newer Amorphous for my employment, and little furrowed brow as I'm listening to it, going, I don't think this is for me. It's a little it's my tolerance for prog is lower than some. So it's very proggy.
I love prog, but I'm more like 70s prog, still kind of rooted in rock. Yes. A lot of and I like newer stuff and things like that, but I mean it's selective in what it is, you know.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not. I've tried to play instruments my whole life, and I've always been particularly inept at playing instruments. And when I hear new prog, it just sounds like that. You know what I mean? I go like, yeah, I don't know. This is why I'm bad at playing instruments. I don't understand what's happening here, and I don't want to understand what's happening here. I'm leaving.
So do we have, I can't tell, do we have a poll or anything? Like, where do they stand? They're either a legend or they're proto to me.
We had a poll. Amorphous 16-1 for nay. They are not a Death Doom band according to our chat, which it doesn't seem like they're getting any pushback from us either. So there's our answer. Done. Amorphous. Okay. We can put up in the proto up top. Mm-hmm. Is there? Let's just.
I think the early albums. Yeah, that album in particular has. Gothic elements and.
We lost you for a second. Seem to be back. Okay. You're back. It wasn't our internet this time, though. This just everybody in the chat. It's clear. Yeah. So, chat. We're talking about early. We've got a pretty nice, shapely list of early. Is there anyone in the chat that thinks there's an early Death Doom band that we haven't talked about enough yet? Eli Unger, can we talk Incantation? briefly we could mention Incantation, and that I feel like, again, that's a proto band certainly, but
Yeah,
that
proto,
feels
100%.
very much a death metal band without
I feel the same way. It's like
100%.
with Amorphous. I mean, Amorphous and Incantation aren't exactly like, I wouldn't compare them together stylistically, but I think they both fall more in the death metal category.
Yeah.
I feel like you can make the argument for a band like maybe like Goat Lord. I feel like Goat Lord has probably more death doom elements than either of those.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely I'd toss them in proto for sure. I just realized we don't have, that is a good point, we don't have a Paradise Lost album up for consideration yet. I guess we haven't really touched on Paradise Lost. I think we kind of briefly talked about Paradise Lost, and then we're all just like, yeah, Paradise Lost, cool. And yeah, we didn't really get into it. What if you were picking a Paradise? Would you put a Paradise Lost album in here, and if so, which one?
If you didn't put a Paradise Lost, if you didn't put Paradise Lost in Legend, then this is ridiculous. You know? So it's not like, are they a legend or not? It's just, which record would you put in there?
Yeah,
I have Icon's my favorite, but my favorite doesn't matter. If we're talking about like legendary, I'd choose one of the first 3 probably. I don't care which one. Mike, you pick. I would probably say Gothic would be the record.
Gothic.
Yeah. So I would put Gothic and Legend.
Yeah.
And I would say that Icon is my favorite, but whatever. Gothic.
Gothic.
Yeah. Lost Paradise for me, but once again, it's an EP.
You and you son of a bitch. You did this just to fuck with me, didn't you? Oh, brother.
I feel like it might even be a mini LP, to be honest.
I didn't carve the history of death
as opposed to an EP, but
I'm a mere pawn in its long-standing history. But yes, this I would pick Gothic.
Yeah. Gothic. I wish we could put Gothic up. I wish we could put Gothic up in there with Lost Paradise's album cover on it, though. because just another in the long history of Death Doom albums that are just a shade.
Yeah, exactly. It's a whole lot of black, and I don't know what that is. That could just be that could be the poop you took. I don't know.
So I'll throw out another one that I would probably say is a legend.
Oh yeah.
You tell me if you agree or disagree, but I would say October Tide, Rain Without End.
Yeah, I was gonna put that in. The only reason I didn't is because it is so heavy on Catatonia worship. I actually don't have a copy. I have the copy that the drummer for my first band burned for me. October Tide, Rain Without End, made on that nice CD maker. But no, I love this album. I still have the copy from when I was 19. So like, yeah, I love October Tide. Great choice.
Yeah. FBI, this man right here. Yeah. You just admitted to a crime. Shut the stream down. Get the cops over to his house.
I received it as a gift for no compensation whatsoever.
Received as a gift for
this
no
is promotional material.
It's promotional material. All right.
This is metal ed for me as a child.
We'll say I'm in Canada. The stream's happening in Canada, and technically that's not a crime in Canada. You're allowed to share. If you are the original owner, you are allowed to share that thing. So yeah, October Tide, I feel like slightly smaller of the one in terms of general exposure, but yeah, I mean, they almost have like again, when we're talking about the kind of the little different spices, it's almost like a melodic death metal. It's like kind of the first you hear of like a guitar tone that sounds like it's coming out of melodic death metal, as opposed to a lot more conventional death metal guitar tones and vocals, a really strong vocal record, really
I
agree. And there's like a slight European folk sound to it as well. That kind of, again, that Z axis, that Z axis kind of going off into the unique thing that kind of separates them from another band.
Yeah, that I'm with you on that. October Tide, that was definitely like that in winter, because I thought we had to make like a top 5 or something. So I that was my honorable mention too, as well as that. I got a few on there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so we'll hammer this out to 5. We'll hammer this out to 5 essential early, 5 essential modern, and with the legend, there's a bit of leeway where we can probably leave 2 legends because I mean, as we've said, it's a pretty a broad genre, and I do kind of like the combination of those 2 legends because it does it a little bit tells you the story of the like kind of dovetailing of the genre, the 2 bands, and especially with I mean. Paradise Lost, you know, really going back to the Death Doom later in their career. And I mean, 2020's Obsidian, I don't know if y'all listened to it, but was a really kind of like a very well done like career retrospective I found for the.
Yeah, it was too long, but he took out like 2 songs or 2 or 3 songs and just shortened the runtime. There, like that track Ghosts was, I love that track, but yeah, it's a really good record.
Yeah.
So, Mike,
I don't have a physical copy, but I have checked it out.
Mike, which Edge of Sanity record would you be putting up here?
Would you consider Edge of Sanity to be Death Doom? I would. If I'm going to do anything, Dan Swano, I would say Pandemonium's way more Death Doom.
Oh yeah, I guess to me they would be, but maybe. Yeah.
I don't know.
Getting back to that question of what the hell is Death Doom?
There you go.
What the hell is Pandemonium? Because that's another weird band. You want your death metal with an alto or a baritone sax? Sure, let's do
it. So, all right.
Zorning all over the place.
Edge of Sanity, Death Doom, nah. Too proggy.
Okay. I had another couple, maybe that are.
Yeah,
maybe more under the radar. Scum, Mother Nature.
Mother Nature. This
is Finnish band from like '94.
Scum, Mother Nature. I haven't heard of this, so let me. This is the great thing about doing this show is the people I have on always do some shit like this where they go, I know no one's gonna have ever heard of it, but this is really good, and then I get to find a new album to like.
Yeah, it's. The record that came out after that, it came out like posthumously. The Garden of Grief or some shit, I forget what it was called. Garden
of Shadows.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a band called.
Yeah, I don't like that one as much. I think
it's
more. I think it's more Death Doomy, but I don't think it's as good. I think Mother Nature is an awesome mid-90s, mid-tempoed death metal record that would be one of those ones like, does it have enough doom per se to really be like, you're splitting the difference between slowed down death metal or doom, you know, like, so I don't know, but I'd put it somewhere on there. Maybe it's in the rest. It's a good record. You should check it out anyway.
All right. I've bookmarked it. Mother Nature.
And then the other one that I had on there for like earlier or whatever was Sempiternal Death Reign. The Spooky Gloom.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, and that's just a funny title, The Spooky Gloom. But I mean, that definitely a Death Doom record with some. I feel like it's got some funnier vocals at times in there too. But good record for sure. That would be. Mike? Would you give that an essential early, or I'm not exactly sure when is early enough to be early, and I'm not actually sure when that record came out.
I mean, I guess it could be kind of essential early. I mean, looking at the categories that we have in here, I mean, it would be either that or the rest. I mean, it's a Death Doom album. I don't know if I personally would characterize it as essential early, but I do think it's a good album.
It's a good. Damn, it's showing 1989.
Yeah.
Is it 89? Is it really that early? Damn,
I just looked it up.
Essential early.
So yeah, I would say that's an essential early record. And if you haven't heard it, that would be one to check out as a good.
Oh, I've got it on the same Pirated Blue thing.
Well, I know you've heard it. I know you have, but I don't want to get you in trouble with the feds. I mean, like the listeners, if they haven't heard that.
Slimline jewel case and all.
Well, I like that. I like that the October Tide record's on there because the random CDR cover basically just looks like the October Tide album cover as well.
Yeah, it actually really isn't that different. Yeah, it was a hard one. It was between that. I was gonna say probably "Paradise Belongs to You" by Saturnus was a contender on that one. I love all that, like that Catatonia influence, like gothic side of Death Doom. Like I really like that, like all that stuff, and like the early stuff too. Like that kind of came out of that. Like I really like that first Gathering album. Always, I think that's really good. You know, a lot of that stuff that kind of came out that was like sort of like early gothic metal before they, you know, not so much like later like Mandalion Gathering or like Theater of Tragedy or like that kind of stuff, but you know, where it was still rooted in death metal and they were still kind of taking cues from the My Dying Bride sort of side of things.
Yeah, for me, a little bit with the Saturnus record, it feels to me like it's nice doom. Like it's like a really nice doom record with a bit of bite to it, but it really feels more of a doom record to me than crossing over fully into death doom. In the same way we've talked a lot about, you know, bands that that are in the death world and are kind of just accidentally brushing up against the doom world. I feel like maybe Saturnus is kind of like the on the opposite side doing the same thing.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, it's still like I think on that album the vocals are still pretty rooted in death metal. It's I think it's a little more than like, let's say something like another band that kind of follows that suit, like Rapture. I really like the first Rapture one, and then they kind of went, you know, still more like in kind of how you're describing it too on the other side.
Yeah. Will there be some Swallow the Sun appearing on this? Will we talk about Swallow the Sun in a Death Doom? I think they're going to come up. I haven't heard of them personally, but it seems like people talk about that band a little bit. We are looking pretty. We are getting kind of like a finalized essential early, though. Because, I mean, once we start... covered a lot of bands, and we kind of start getting into the 2000s, and in the 2000s you start to get some of the bands that I would definitely say kind of we start having a modern sound to, and a sort of modern wave. You know, Swallow the Sun is a good band to mention because
I was going to say
we're getting shortly to the, you know, 2003 The Morning Never Came comes out, and that's feels like certainly a continuation of the someone kind of picking up the work that the Peaceville Three sort of started, but then went off and did something else and kind of pursuing what they started in a Death Doom direction. And I feel like it's a very, I guess 2003, a pretty passing of the torch year.
Yeah, I like that first Swallow the Sun. They're another band like I haven't really listened to a lot of the later stuff. I know that's the stuff that's gotten like really progressive, and you know, I mean, you got like double CDs and all this other thing, you know. But I really like that first one. I actually saw them with another band, which was going to be a pick of mine, Daylight Dies. This is Dismantling Devotion. This is probably like one of my favorite post-millennium Death Doom records, but I saw them both on the same tour and I thought they were really good. But Daylight Dies I really latched onto a bit more than Swallow the Sun. I do have a pick for either an essential early or a proto that we haven't discussed yet, which is Dream Death, Journey into Mystery. I think that this is actually something that I would recommend to somebody who wants to get into Death Doom. Like this to me is like one of the formative starts of the genre. It's equal parts like Doom and Celtic Frost and other stuff, and they're American too, you know.
I like their name too.
Dream
Dream Death is just a cool name.
Yeah. Dream Death, cool name. Does a little bit of the thing that bothers me, but not as bad as it's an eem, not an So I'm more okay with that flow. It's a great way to prove my point. Dream Death versus say Dream Death and then say Doom Death, and feel how awkward that difference is. And that's why you should never call the genre Doom Death, because it's terrible to say. But yeah, Dream Death. I mean, yeah, it's a great. It's certainly a great album to talk about in the proto category, because I mean they're coming out with that record before we even really have death metal to talk about. Almost, they're again, figuring stuff out, kind of experimenting, and you're getting that like that early metal sound kind of combined with doom, and it's like both Dream Death is still better sounding than Doom Death. Thank you, Passionate Introvert. Deem Dooth, Der Bierkaiser. How dare you? Fish called Dream Death Proto for sure. Yeah, that's it's a great pick for Proto, and that it kind of really shows you how far back that bands were kind of experimenting with this like mixing of an aggressive style with a style that you don't get traditionally thought of as aggressive in the kind of like thrashy, speedy, deathy sound mixed with something like doom metal.
No, I fully agree. Yeah, that's why I figured. I figure you got to at least mention it in the proto part.
Very valid point. Let me toss that in there. How are you feeling, Alex? How are you feeling about our list? Are there any glaring omissions to you that are?
No, not at all. I feel like we got to rifle through and get this this modern one done, because I'm going to feel very unsatisfied if we don't get our 5 in each category.
Yeah, here. Right. We've currently got 6 sitting in essential early, but we can figure that out. We can figure that out a bit later, because worst case scenario, we've got 6 in there, but that's better than not having anything in essential modern. Yeah. And but what is fantastic is JD gifting that sub to Passionate Introvert. Thanks, buddy. Much appreciated. So, all right, we've covered. And we kind of started talking about Swallow the Sun, and yeah, I like I said, you get a band that really feels like it kind of was like, hey, why did the Peaceful 3 stop making this? Why didn't they continue on and see where this takes them? And you get kind of that. It's a band that can be really heavy, but you get the orchestration and the big kind of. Oh my God! Speaking of big and kind, True Cult Records gifting 5 subs to the stream, and Passionate Introvert gifting a sub to the stream. Very kind, fellas. This is we're on Twitch, so this is the portion where it gets a little twitchy. Thanks so much. Very kind. Yeah, Inky, yell at him. Try and get that record off him. True Cult Records running a great underground record label out of Greece. Appreciate the records you're putting out, and appreciate the 5 gifted subs. And yeah, thanks as well, Passionate Introvert. But yeah, boys, while this sting plays for the great generosity in the chat, thoughts on Swallow the Sun, Alex?
Mike, I don't listen to him. I don't have any thoughts.
I was going to say, I'd be down to throw the first one in Essential Modern. Like I said, I really can't comment on the later discography, but I have that first one, and yeah. I mean, I still have it. I haven't sold it back, so it's resonated in some degree. I would also, like I said, I mentioned that Daylight Dies band. I think that I really think that band's underrated. They were a relapse band for a long time too, and then they went to Candlelight. I think towards the end of their career, but Dismantling Devotion, I think, was their debut on Candlelight, and that was 2006, 2007. Yeah, it was 2006 because the Tigers were in the World Series. When do you ever see that? But no, yeah, they were. That was the first time I think they had done the World Series since '84. So that was, it was definitely 2006, and I don't know if that would qualify as essential modern. I mean, is that, because when you think about it, I mean, that's still well over a decade old at this point.
Yeah, but like I said, if we're talking about the first, and I think we kind of it would be very strange to not put the first Swallow the Sun record in there. I mean, first Swallow the Sun record 2003, so we're certainly in a very reasonable time frame for that record. 2006. Yeah, that can't. Hey, that's for me. I feel like once we get to the mid 2000s, I mean, 2006 ain't that long ago. And I mean, you get when you look at especially when you look at the the stuff that comes out even just shortly afterwards is definitely modern. I mean, you know, you've got that coming out in 2006, and then you've got Acid Witch releasing Witch Tana Hallucinations in 2008. So 2006, I think, definitely counts. Yeah. Definitely counts.
Okay, well,
I trust you guys on it. If you say Swallow the Sun and Daylight Dies, I trust Mike's opinion on both those.
I definitely vouch for Daylight Dies. Yeah. We can always swap things out. I mean, if we're throwing more stuff on the table. I mean, we haven't even really mentioned Hooded Menace. I know, Alex, you're a huge Hooded Menace fan. I mean, Loss did vocals on the first Acid Witch. I mean, he is an, you know, iconic figure in it, you know, Phlegathon, all that other stuff. I mean, he's, you know, so that's another band that could easily get up on the Essential Modern.
Oh, if they're not on the Essential Modern, I mean, hitting Command Q on this browser.
I mean, I'm not. I am the unofficial president of the Hooded Menace fan club. So yeah, don't worry. I've got some thoughts on Hooded Menace. Well, so for Daylight Dies, we can ask the chat. We've got this lovely poll feature. Everybody loves a poll. We can check with the chat how they're feeling on that one. And their opinions. But yeah, all right, well, so no opinion from Alex on Swallow the Sun. So let's, I mean, we've said the name a lot, and I've restrained myself, I think, very appropriately. So let's talk about Hooded Menace.
Never Cross the Dead.
Absolutely.
Like, dude,
that would be my choice.
Yeah, the guitar break in the first song, like when I mean, dude, when I heard that for the first time, I was like, that's so fucking good. And then when it comes in with a boom, boom, yeah, that album is, I love everything they've done, but that album is the one that goes up there.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
I heard that album, and I was like, well, this is my favorite band now. And
they're awesome.
I've never been disappointed. You know, it really feels like there has been a large Hooded Menace influence throughout the genre. You definitely, you know, Hooded Menace kind of exists, and then you start hearing some bands that sound like Hooded Menace, and especially today, you're getting a lot of bands that sound like Hooded Menace, and I'm not complaining about that in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, just you know, the thing for me, like I said with Death Doom, just perfect guitar tone. Like, I don't, you know, I could just listen to Last playing open strings all day. I think you could just do an album where he's just going like this, and I would go like, oh, it sounds so good.
Yeah, but the thing is the songwriting. You know, like I talked about I didn't say the nicest thing about early Anathema songwriting, but I think all the Hooded Menace stuff has awesome production and it's killer. But Lasse is just an awesome songwriter. He knows how to craft good tunes, and that's what I think puts Hooded Menace on a different pedestal than the Hooded Menace clones. You know.
Yeah. So. Absolutely. I mean, and again, you know, the experimentation that we talk about every Hooded Menace record is a different blend. It's not, you know, it's not, oh, this is a continuation of the last record. I mean, I thought, I mean, I was even surprised at how quickly the blend shifted between the last two records, because I was like, oh wait, I thought we were doing that. This has surprised even me, and I've been following for a little bit now. I talk about it all the time. 2011, first time I got to see Hooded Menace at Maryland Death Fest, with also seeing Acid Witch there, and that was a very great Death Doom time for me. And I, what's the in Acid Witch, the short guy, the really short guy.
That would be Dave.
Dave, yeah. I can't. Well, because I know I just the context of the story is I was Acid Witch was one of the bands I was very excited to see at Maryland Death Fest. Did a fantastic job, amazing show. Well, chased down Dave afterwards and was like, "Hey, do you have any merch?" And he's like, "Oh, I think I should have some stuff on me. I'll get back to you." And then he left. And then when I found him again, he's like, "Oh, sorry, it's all sold out." And I was like, "What the hell? I wanted to give you money." damn it.
Oh yeah, that was wild. I think we talked about this when we did the one interview for The World That Was. Yeah, we were like selling stuff in the parking lot before we could find. We didn't have a table space. I mean, and it was like when we finally got the table space, it was like Black Friday doorbusters, and we were just all of a sudden we had stuff, and then we didn't.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we were trying to track down a table. We'll get back to you, and then yeah, it was gone. So yeah. And then, but yeah, obviously I talked to him physically, and so the very I'm 6'2", so there was the strong memory is, hey, amazing set.
Well, while we're Blayne, while we're in Finland,
yes,
let's go to Solithus.
Yep.
Realm of Ash and Blood would have
to
be up there for essential modern, as far as I'm concerned. Production on that record is awesome. It's one of my favorite modern productions. Honestly, if we could do a record that sounded like Realm of Ash and Blood, I would be very happy. But the songwriting is excellent, and I think Kari and Mike are the two best death metal vocalists, honestly, on Earth.
Oh, thanks.
Damn.
Thanks, bud.
Damn. Well, look at that.
I do.
I was gonna say that's a very.
You guys are my favorite. I can't think of anyone.
Kari rules though. Oh my god, yeah. Well, we got doomed to death like pretty much every night on that tour. Like having to follow that band was quite difficult. Yeah, and just watching him, and I mean he's a very large man too. I want to say he's at least 6'2", 6'3", and it just being up there and just that like guttural low coming out.
Yeah,
I would definitely put them up. I was gonna say if I were to add maybe another one to the essential modern, I definitely want to give a shout out to Kentucky's Rotting Kingdom. I think I really like that. They're on my list. There you go. Yeah. I was gonna say Deeper Shade of Sorrow. I thought was a really, really, really strong record.
I like Rotting Kingdom better. Like I like the production on the album.
It's an EP.
It's an EP. Never mind.
Yeah, that's an EP. EP.
Both of you coming at me from. I get it from both sides.
No, I agree with Mike. Then if we're going albums, I agree. Rotting Kingdom should be on there, and he has a killer voice too.
Mm-hmm.
And they're great live.
Yeah, they. I know a lot of people have kind of compared us and them to it too. I think with us, there's a bit more muscle, and I think that's a lot of like your guys' writing with that. You know, like a little bit more of American style doom or American style death with things like that. I think that Rotting Kingdom do things a bit more traditionally than we do. Mm-hmm. But they also throw like a lot of weird curveballs. Like there's this one riff, I'm trying to think the song that's on it, but yeah, it's like this very strange off time riff that just kind of comes out of nowhere. So I live for like weird, interesting parts like that. So that was like one of the things where I was like, okay, this is a cool record. I dig this, you know. On there, and like that riff you were talking about, the Hooded Menace riff, the first one that comes off, it's like one of those riffs where it's like I actually literally pulled out my guitar and I'm like, what is he doing here? And it's a cool riff. Like it does like this weird half step descension to it, and I like to play it. It's much weirder than what it sounds. Like it sounds a lot like simpler and a lot more melodic, but what he's doing, it's definitely a lot more interesting. And I like parts like that. And I think this Rotting Kingdom album has elements of that where it's like, not necessarily, I don't think it sounds like Hooded Menace, but it has that like weird factor of like something that catches me. I'm like, that's interesting. I want to go back and I kind of want to dissect what's happening here.
I felt the same way about the EP. Not that we put it up on here, Blayne, but when you're talking about guitar riffs, I felt like these guys had a uniquely European perspective in their songwriting, and they wrote some riffs that I didn't see coming, or I felt like, how are these guys not European? You know, like it just didn't sound American. And it's not like a good or a bad thing about what side of the pond you're on. It's just more what you inherently think of as sort of European riffing versus American. And I think that EP is awesome. I like the production better on the album, but they're an underrated band.
I think another one for modern.
Yeah.
Druid Lord. I think this is the first one. I think this is like 2009, 2010. But Grotesque Offerings, that one that they did, I think like shortly before the pandemic, I thought that one ruled.
Yeah, that was a fantastic record. I believe that was in Metal Monthly, the month it came out, because yeah, that is obviously very much my thing. And if it wasn't, I talked about it profusely somewhere else. Yeah, I mean, it's funny how like how many bands were suddenly just spewing out when we were getting this. It's really a genre that is feels like, especially in the past 5 years, has just been exploding with all these amazing records that are sounding super different, and we're getting a lot of these like Druid Lord, like very heavy Death Doom records recently, and that one, I mean, you know, that one just came out a couple months ago. And there's just this massive explosion. We already have too many on there, and we haven't even touched on. And I feel like you guys are talking about all these other bands because, you know, at some point I'm gonna have to talk about your bands in front of you, which is always the uncomfortable part for the guest.
Don't make me rate my own band.
We don't make you rate your own bands. We just make you sit there and smile while I say nice things about you. So
it's okay, Mike. There's room up there for Legend, so we'll take the Legend spot. There's a couple.
There's a couple. We can fit a couple more in Legend.
Taking compliments is kind of my personal hell, Blayne. So
yeah. That's every single person I've brought on the show has been like, how about we just not talk about my record? I was like, you're on the show because people want to talk about your record.
Well, there's just one record that I want to get on the board, and then I don't care what we talk about.
Okay.
And that's Indescendence, Vessels of Light and Decay.
Indescendence, Vessels of Light and Decay.
Yeah, English modern band. Highly recommend that record. I think it's like a member of Grave Miasma, or like one of those like big, or Cruciamentum or something, but it is classic Death Doom done right for the modern era. Like, they are melodic, like kind of Hooded Menacey, Paradise Lost put together. I don't know, but just everything that I want out of a modern death doom record. And unquestionably Death Doom too. There's no ambiguity about where they stand. But that record, though, Vessels of Light and Decay, is so freaking good.
All right, well, this is one I haven't heard, and you know, surprisingly, it's a Death Doom record. It came out on Profound Lore Records. I'm looking bad here. This is supposed to be my zone, and you caught me with my pants down on this one.
It's all right. I'd never listened to Swallow the Sun, so you know, I mean, we can't.
Okay.
We can't listen to everything, you know.
Me putting a Swallow the Sun record up there doesn't sound nearly as cool.
No, but I mean, I don't listen to some of the bigger ones that you're talking about. I never listened to Daylight Dies. I've heard Mike say that they were good, but yeah, Indescendence, Vessels of Light and Decay. The one that came out after that.
Make you a slimline CDR with a solid blue cover of it, and you know what? I have a pick for something that I didn't think of, and I'm actually verifying whether it's an EP or an LP here. So bear with me.
I had a couple like EPs that I can just, or whatever, that I can mention without you putting them up, just as like honorable mentions. Funeral Leech. I think the Funerality demo is super good. The album is good too, but if I was picking, I would go with the demo. So if you wanted to put the album up there, I would definitely back Funeral Leech. And I think the other one, I would say, Spectral Voice, the demo, but only the demo. Yeah, like the demo blew me away as far as being like just straight up caveman Death Doom.
Yeah.
And then when they did the album, I was like, nah, not anymore. Like, this is it's too much like, you know, what they're doing with whatever Blood Incantation. Like, I felt like the bare knuckleness of the demo totally got lost when they moved to the album. And from a personal perspective, I really liked the demo, and then I was like, meh. I'll listen to Blood Incantation if I wanted more of like the other stuff. So
I'm loving having you. This is the hot take machine, just a hot take dispenser. Put in a quarter, get a hot take out. Perfect for the show.
I wanted a whole album like the demo, you know. So
I'm kind of with you. I actually really like that Necrotic Doom demo. I was way into it when it came out.
Yeah.
It is verified as a full length and Hedonist Netherworlds. Yeah. I was gonna say this is something I would probably put for Essential Modern. I actually still have a bunch of picks that I haven't, that we haven't really gotten to. But there's like weird draws in here where it's like, I feel like Funeral Doom, like the denotation of like Funeral Doom now is very different from like what Funeral Doom I think was. When I used to associate Funeral Doom, I would think of stuff like Firebox recordings and like
Skepticism.
Those kind of bands, like where it's like so slow that it's almost like
Ahab
ambience more than it is actual like structured songs. But I know a lot of people have made the argument that Evoken is Funeral Doom, but I would, dude, Embrace the Emptiness. What a great record, man. I would throw that up there. Another band I would recommend, this is a compilation, but this is a band from Wisconsin called Dusk, who I believe are actually still playing around, but that would be a good one that I would probably mention on there. Did I mention Unholy? I was going to say that would be another band that I would probably.
You're just firing out bands to keep me from talking about Temple of Void, aren't you?
We can do that. All right.
Hold
on, I haven't talked about Loss yet. I haven't talked about Quasar yet. Hold on, we gotta hold on. My Shameful Until Death Overtakes. No.
Well, I mean, I feel like when this album came out, I feel like there was probably a noticeable shift. How did it feel when this album came out? Just we'll shift into slight interview. Because it does seem like there was a very big latching on, and I mean, some people can't let go of this album to even listen to the new albums you put out. This album means so much to them.
It's the least doom out of, I think, the entire catalog. Yeah. I was going to say out of any of them, I think the first one is probably the most most by definition death doom.
Yeah, if I were like putting one of our Essential Modern picks, I would go with Terror and Supernatural. It's like the purest death doom. But the reason that we wrote Lords of Death is because when we were playing the doomier stuff of Terror and Supernatural live, we felt, at least I think most of us felt, that that's where we lost steam, like on stage. And what was good to compose and listen to wasn't necessarily the best to translate onto the stage. So we wanted to write a record that I can speak from my perspective because I write most of the riffs on that record. We wanted to write something that had more energy and was written for the stage. So Lords of Death was like written for the stage. And that's why it's more of a banger, I guess, from that perspective. But to me, it's less of a death doom record. But it's still fucking death doom. It's just,
Well, we're not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily have to be a very. It doesn't have to be that it falls exactly or it defines it. But this is a record that I think is resonated with people pretty strongly. As I said, I mean, like I said,
it's still a death doom record. Yeah.
For sure. No. Yeah. I think it's Mike's slide guitar intro that really sets it apart from the rest.
Because I mean, it is a record that seems to mean a lot to a lot of people. In that, the people that have said like, oh, why aren't they making more Lords of Death? It's not that. It seems to be that it's just this record hit them in a specific way, and that kind of resonation is the kind of thing that gets an album put up on this list, is people really loving it.
Well, and again, I was going to say, I mean, people are like, oh, well, why don't they repeat Lords of Death? Well, I mean, who's to say that we won't shift back in there? It's just kind of like every album, and I've noticed this with every band, and this is kind of maybe something that like some people don't really realize, is a lot of it is captured like whatever that moment is where you are in that. Like, yeah. I really feel like, you know, like a lot of people I think have kind of tried to make the angle, like the newest one that we've done is, you know, it's not related to the pandemic, but it was definitely influenced by a lot of the sadness of things and just modern times and stuff like that. And I think that the music kind of reflects that and this sort of that. Whereas at this point, you know, we had already done an album of Terror and the Supernatural when Lords of Death came in. Like Alex said, it was more things are written for the stage. And me being a vocalist, like, you know what I mean? I'm kind of I get what is sent to me and I build what I can from there, you know, and then they take me out of the closet and they let me play acoustic guitar. And then, so, but you know what I mean? It's like with Lords of Death, I think with them, it was like, that's what everybody was feeling. And there's no sense, and you don't know what the future is going to hold, where it's like, well, okay, maybe we're more in that mood, or maybe the next album, everybody's feeling a little more death. It's just, this is kind of where it is and where it was. And I'm glad that it was an album that seemed to be very much at the right place at the right time for people. So, and I'm very grateful that people enjoy it as much as they do.
Agreed.
Yeah.
No hot take on this?
No hot take. Well, I mean, you know, you came in with a bit of a hot take on it where you're like, you know, it's not really the Death Doom record of Terror and the Supernatural's the Death Doom record. If we're doing a Death Doom, I mean, really, it should go in essential modern death metal, if anything.
No, make no mistakes. Everything we do is Death Doom. Yes. But I think to epitomize the genre of Terror and the Supernatural is more of like just like I said, Icon was my favorite, but I would use one of the earlier stuff as more of like an epitome of an example. That's what I think of Terror and the Supernatural, is maybe like the purest from that perspective. But I love playing Lords of Death, and a lot of people like it. You know, so
it's our 68 Death, 32 Doom album.
That's the ratio. Yeah. I mean, but it does seem like, you know, I feel like there is also like a kind of, and the poll, the chat voted, yeah, Lords of Death taking it away. I feel like you do, you know, it's been 5 years since that record released, and you do, you know, we're talking about some records, and it feels like its influence is starting to creep into some bands, and you're getting a little bit of the effect of that record being felt, and it feels like it's a strong record that's going to be, you know, remembered very fondly for a while. So it feels like it really, you know, deserves and belongs to be in here. A band that got mentioned in the chat that we kind of sped over in our jump to the like 2020s almost is that I very much love is the old Coffins there.
Yeah, I was gonna say Mortuary in Darkness. Yeah, I would put that on the Essential Modern.
Yeah, right. I mean, I feel like again, Coffins is one of those bands where you go, you hear them and there's this bit of a delay, this bit of latency before everybody starts going, man, that Coffin stuff is really sick. We should probably let's make some stuff that sounds like Coffins. And again, really starting to feel that Coffin influence in a lot of stuff, and you know, a kind of continuation of Coffins almost today with a lot of stuff. And they're a band that I have a lot of fond memories of. Do I still have this loaded? Let me see. Let me head over here. Here we go. Boom. There is me seeing Coffins at La Miroiterie, which was a punk squat in Paris. They played a very wild and crazy show in like just La Miroiterie. I don't know if it's still in Paris. It was this very wild place in that it was legitimately a squat. It was in downtown, and it was simultaneously a squat, but it was in downtown Paris, and shows would happen there. While like you look to the left and a dude's like shooting up, and you're like, "What the hell? Oh my god!"
Sounds like downtown Paris.
Yeah, very downtown Paris. There's just a guy with like a bag of wine on his shoulder, just sucking out of it. You're like, I can tell who's here for the show and who's here as residents.
Yeah, I'd back that.
That would be. I think that's a cool experience to see them in that kind of a setting, in that location and whatnot. I think my only time seeing them was at MDF, and you know, it's just so exhausting sometimes. I mean, it's like by the end of that weekend, you're basically like a dehydrated mummy.
Yeah,
and like, so like,
I mean, you understand why European open airs are so much more popular than the American in the middle of an urban center fest, where you go like, boy, I've sure heard a lot of bands. I'd like to sit down. I'm in a parking lot. Whereas like in Europe, you're like, I'm in a field. I'm in rural Germany. I'll just go sit down somewhere nice and have a beer.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about getting some guy's Band-Aid stuck to your butt or something. Sitting in some vomit.
Yeah. And again, talking about that Z factor, with Coffins, it was really the kind of I don't know if there's a Death Doom band that was as punk as them, that really kind of just brought that like fun punk energy to everything, and really despite the fact that they were playing, it's probably the most fun Death Doom band. Normally fun isn't the smiling fun isn't necessarily a thing you associate a lot with Death Doom, but that seemed to be kind of Coffin's vibe.
Yeah, the whole thing is, it's like, I think fun carries certain connotations to it. I mean, like, entertaining maybe would be the better term. You know what I mean? It's like, if it keeps your attention and it keeps you occupied and something like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like the worst thing that you could be as a musician or an entertainer is be boring, you know? Yeah. So yeah, I remember the set. Like I said, I remember enjoying them quite a bit, and yeah, it would be cool to kind of see them in that intimate of a setting.
It was a great one, and then and then seeing them again in even more intimate setting. I saw them in Japan. They did a tour with Bellwitch, and those are more pals. So we met up at an izakaya, and then the next day they played in like a basement the size of like a North American bathroom. It was crazy. It was a very much, again, just like, damn, is there a rule that this always happens in a punk squat?
They make for the best stories.
Now Metallum has Coffins as Doom Death as opposed to Death Doom. Outrageous. There's a band that is absolutely Death Doom, and certainly not Doom Death. All right, our list is a little long in the tooth currently. Someone also mentioned there's a couple of very modern bands where it starts to. But I'm sorry, Mike, you had your hand up.
I was gonna say, I mean, we're lacking in the legend category. I mean, you could kick that Turn Loose the Swans right into the legend, and then you've got at least the 3 in there.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, well, because normally the legend is like you normally pick 1 or maybe 2 or 3.
Okay. I thought you needed 5 of each.
Not 5 of each. The legend is supposed to be like, that's the elite. That's the Navy SEALs. And then we've got the army analogy is run out. So
those are your SEAls. The rest of these guys, these are your peons. These are your infantry.
Yeah. And then the essential moderns, your pogues.
These are the guys getting diphtheria from bamboo shoots.
Yeah. The guys too close to burn pits, and now they have mesothelioma. So modern bands, we got a couple of modern bands, a couple of big ones over the years, a couple of big ones in the past few years where, there's a couple of bands that I feel like, again, it's maybe a little early for them, but Mortiferum being one that's released some pretty gross albums, some pretty very gross albums, and has done such a great job of having these gross album covers that are not gross in any, like, it's like fits so well with the music because it's like not traditional metal gross, and that they're not doing anything gross. like they're not singing, they're not specifically being explicit or anything, and the album cover doesn't particularly have anything wrong on it, but it just looks so gross in such a good way. It's really, they're just the grossest band.
Yeah, they were a band that I've had a lot of people recommend to me, and I checked out and I dig. So I think they're worthy to be on the list, especially because I really struggle to find a lot of modern bands and stuff like that, because like I said, I just don't do the listening that I used to, at least, you know, because of career, because of my own, you know, like I feel like my brain is so set on being like a producer versus like consumer kind of mentality, that it's like I have so much stuff of like writing and being in my own like creative brain capsule that I wish, and I miss it, because I used to love listening to stuff and checking stuff out. And but this was definitely a band that I dug into due to recommendations from other people. I have to have people do their research now and get back to me, give me their blue Slim 9, you know.
Alex, checking in with you. Haven't heard from you in a bit. How you feeling? Did you listen to the Mortiferum records, the past 2 that have come out at all?
No, I'm kind of with Mike. Certainly a lot of my musical listening these days it's going backwards, not necessarily going forwards. I try and check out a decent amount of modern stuff, but I'm easy to dismiss it if it doesn't like jump out at me like super quickly, and that's just a finite amount of time for listening and blah blah blah. So I think there's probably a bunch of stuff that you guys, the people listening, know that are great and people enjoy them, and they're worthy to be in the sort of in the rest there. But I just haven't dug into them enough. Like I've never listened to a full Tomb Mold record. I've never listened to a full Mortiferum record. I don't know. So I'll have to trust you guys on some of the newer stuff.
I upset a witch, and she cursed me, and so now my the thing that I am most popular for is listening to a little bit of every single metal album that releases every single week of every single month of every single year, which is both very fun and that I'm cursed by a witch. So I hear literally everything, and it can kind of work in the same way where it's like it just becomes such a wash where there's just so much going in that like it gets really hard for things to stick. You're just like, whatever, 6 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 6 out of 10. But you know, Mortiferum was one that definitely stuck out.
I do have a comment though on what you said about the album cover and the lyrics and stuff. What you're hinting at is that they have great atmosphere.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Because it's atmospheric in the visual presentation, you know, and that's the Z-axis working for them.
Yeah.
So, you know, hats off to them for doing that. That's cool.
Yeah, they do it really well, and they've really defined their Z-axis really nicely, and they've made a very cool little niche for them. And that just that like it's like everything is covered in goo. It's just the feeling you get, and it's such a nice feeling. Why is everything covered in goo, and you don't know really where the goo came from?
So there's a couple influences on me as a guitarist that I think, like from a modern era, I think they're death metal, but they're on that. Okay, so Necros Christos, like, Doom would you call them death doom, or would you just call them death metal? You know, Doom of the Occult, that particular record, fucking amazing.
I think the first thing I ever heard from them was that Grave Damnation demo, and I would definitely say that is more on the Death Doom side.
Because if you could put Doom of the Occult, if you ask the listeners, if Doom of the Occult is officially Death Doom, to me that is essential modern for sure. If you classify it as Death Doom. Right, if you didn't, I wouldn't argue with you. Like things like, to me, those things are cut and dry, like Hooded Menace, Solithus, Rotting Kingdom, and Dissonance. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. These are Death Doom records, but there's some of these ones that kind of straddle, like people mentioned, Incantation, Autopsy, you know, Asphyx. And to me, Necros Christos could be one of those ones that you're not sure about, but if they are, definitely essential. And then I'm pretty sure Vastum would just be death metal, but to me, they're slow enough and doomy enough that they're adjacent to the conversation, and I fucking love everything that Vastum's done.
Well, let's toss a Necros Christie poll in the chat for yay or nay. And hey, D Lamb, nice to see you. Thanks for popping by and thanks for the follow. Yeah, I mean, we are the critical thing is we are coming near the end of our time, gentlemen. We've had you for quite a while, and our list is significantly too long. Which is, I mean, this is a hard one for me to. Normally, I can do a little bit of the pruning, but Death Doom is a hard one to prune within because
I'm with like turn with the Swans up into Legend, and then you've got 3 Legends and 5 Essentials, and you've sorted that out.
Okay.
You know,
yes.
I think anyone who argues that Turn with the Swans isn't a legendary Death Doom record.
All right. This is I'll take it. All right, that's dealt with.
Okay. So pruning Essential Modern.
Pruning Essential Modern.
You can't get rid of Hooded Menace. It seems like you guys say you can't get rid of Swallow the Sun.
They're just too impactful. It feels like. Born Too Late just tuned in. Where's Thurgothan albums? Thurgothan albums are in the Funeral Doom episode.
Yeah, see, I
turned in super too late.
Yeah, I was gonna pick Stream from the Heavens, but it's like the category of Funeral Doom and Death Doom and things like that. It's so like you can make the arguments either way. It was one of those ones. It was definitely considered. I was thinking about mentioning. I love that album too, but yeah, I would definitely say more Funeral.
Yeah. I think Mike and I would probably be in agreement that Solithus, Realm of Ash and Blood, would be one to really keep in Essential Modern.
Yeah.
Mike, would you back me on that?
Yeah, I would keep it. I'd like to keep all of it.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that I struggle with is I think Rotting Kingdom is, I would move that down to the rest.
Yeah.
I don't consider them essential on the same level. If I'm putting them shoulder to shoulder with Hooded Menace, you know, and Solithus, you know, Saw the Sun, I don't put Rotting Kingdom on the same level. So I
really love that album, but I mean, for the sake of time and argument, I mean, dude, there's so many records that I feel like we haven't even touched. Like I said, I brought up Evoken, that Dusk Band, you know, there's so many things that like we could be putting for this. So
yeah. But you got to make tough calls. And like,
I am also apologizing because my cat is just like really starving for attention right now.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you're welcome to Twitch. Twitch is an area where people love cats. They love seeing cats. They're on.
Well, hopefully it'll boost the stream posts and the views and all that. So.
Yeah, there's cat emotes in the chat going. Evoken got on the Funeral Doom Lockhorns. Yeah. Some of these bands got their due in another episode, so we can keep the space open.
The thing is, like, to me, Indestinence is one of the best records on this page.
Page.
Yeah, like I like it better than some of the proto legendary essential. Like, to me, if I was making a top 5 records of what you have on there, it would make my top 5 records period out of all those records on there. But I know it's under the radar. You haven't heard it. Mike, have you heard that record?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so it's like you just got to take my word for it. So if you wanted to move it to the rest, then you could move it to the rest. But if Alex had his own page, then that would for sure be Essential Modern.
Well, this is, I mean, you know, this is part of what this is for. You know, it doesn't necessarily make the final cut, but it does get the representation. It does get the mention. It does get the acknowledgement, and you kind of get the, you know, you'll likely, if they got a Bandcamp, you'll likely move a couple copies for them today. Yeah. So that's your good deed for the day, right?
Yeah. Mike, what do you think?
I mean, I'm okay for the sake of, you know, I mean, like Acid Witch and the Temple of Void and stuff. I mean, like that stuff could be in the rest. I almost feel like I want to leave Essential Modern for things that I'm like, you know what I mean? Like I'm a fan of personally, not saying I'm not a fan of, you know,
something I'm a fan of, not my crappy bands that everybody loves.
Oh, no, I'm not even saying that at all. I'm just saying like, I almost feel like, you know, yes, I'm a fan of the music that we make, otherwise we wouldn't make it. But like, I almost feel like if I'm picking Essential Modern stuff, like I want to reserve those spaces for things, you know, I don't know, I guess things that I'm a fan of, things that I think are essential in influencing me as a death doom musician.
I hear you. I hear you.
We'll leave that up to you, Blayne, because we have our own biases.
Well, I think
I'll just slide it down.
I think what I'm gonna say is I'll slide it down, but that you know, I think it would be criminal to take it off the list. It would be non-representative of the current state of death doom and of an essential death doom. And it's my favorite genre, so I'm gonna say we get to have a bit of a list that's a little too big. And that's just the way it is. And if anybody's got a problem with it, they can come talk to this guy.
I'm okay with Nixon, Amorphous, and Incantation out of the proto too, because like I said, I feel like they still fall more into like the death metal side of things.
Yeah, we don't got to worry about proto. Proto can get as big as you want, because that's just to acknowledge that, hey, these bands had some influence and blah blah blah. Proto is just kind of us giving a nod to some of the as a way to kind of talk a little bit about the history of the genre. So I think this is a great looking list. I'll let the chat see the list unfettered by here. We'll even get the little Lockhorns logo out of the way for you, so you can take a look at the list. I think we did a great job. But we only have so much time.
And, I know.
And
still think Unholy from the Shadows should have been on there.
And we've come to the end. I feel really good about what we did. I really appreciate you guys coming out and hanging out with us twice. I appreciate the new record. And I am just, boy, gosh darn it, am I happy and am I in a good mood. I just get to talk about my favorite genre. And as a reminder to the chat, Temple of Void just put out a fantastic new record. Check it out. Make sure there's the Bandcamp link. Grab a copy if you haven't got one. Der Beer Kaiser saying play Psycho Las Vegas. Oh, we got another cat for you. I agree. Play Psycho Las Vegas. Get in touch with. Find out why you're not on Psycho Las Vegas and play Psycho Las Vegas for us.
They have our contact. We've played it before.
Yeah.
Well, I'll start yelling at them. We're premiering. We've been premiering a bunch of their stuff. If you guys don't put Temple of Void on, the premiere train shuts down.
Yeah. Do that, please. Thanks. That'd be great.
Tip fam, my Temple of Void Bandcamp vinyl is ordered and coming. Hell yeah. Now someone create a playlist of this album. Yeah, if there's any true saints in the crowd with a Spotify subscription, J-Mage. I got YouTube Music. Nobody uses it. I create playlists and no one would care because they'd just be for me because I'm on YouTube Music over here. just gotta be weird. I appreciate you guys. I really appreciate you coming out. That's been the stream. Let's toss a little raid onto whoever else in the old Banger Buds is currently on Twitch, and then yeah. Is there anything y'all want to say? Anything you want to plug? Any last words?
Thank everybody that tuned in. This was a cool time. This is fun. You know, it's. I don't know. I love, you know, talking shop on this kind of stuff. So this stuff's fun for me. So yeah, thanks for everybody that listened. You know, sorry if we didn't list your favorite album. We only had 2 hours. So, you know.
Yeah, thanks so much, Blayne. Appreciate it, man.
We did good work. Appreciate having you. We're gonna raid Nick Nocturnal. You can catch us tomorrow. We're doing a charity stream. It's gonna be a relay raid. Nick Nocturnal will be kicking things off for us. We're gonna go through some great metal creators on Twitch and end with our friends in Unleash the Archers doing a little celebrity guitar wizard battle duel to kind of announce that we'll be doing Shredders of Metal on Twitch. We're gonna bring back Shredders of Metal as a Twitch show, and we're kicking it off with some fun banger pals off the hop. So thanks a bunch to Temple of Void. Thanks to you guys for coming out, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.
All right. Thanks, Blayne.